Hey, welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drew B. Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Let's be honest, this is the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality, you can create an amazing life in sales. Today's guest, no stranger to that journey, a serial entrepreneur, someone that's done amazing deals, all in Fortune 500 companies, all kinds of cool stuff. But he's just a guy that just wants to help. He's my new friend, Mr. Anthony Franco. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Drewby. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm honestly, I'm honored. I'm looking at your accolades. I know you've done some pretty cool stuff. So I want to jump right in, man. I want to hear a crazy sales story from you.
The one that's popping to mind is actually not my sales story, but I was helping an enterprise. So one of my companies, we did Fortune 100 consulting, right? So
okay.
I was helping solve a sales problem for a very large company, large telco on the NASDAQ, like really big company, and CEO, CIO, CRO, bunch of salespeople. We're all in the room. We spent 6 hours brainstorming how we can help them close more deals. And we outlined this beautiful application, this beautiful system and process. After 6 hours, everyone was bought off and we were wrapping things up and I was on my way out and a salesperson grabbed me by the arm. And this woman who had said literally nothing in the meeting, she grabbed me and she says, "You forgot something." And I'm like, "What?" She said, "We'd close more deals if I got the lead within a couple of hours instead of waiting a week to get the lead. I lose most of the deals because I don't even have the lead for a week." So when you're talking about close the damn lead, right, or call the damn lead, it's like, well, you need to get the lead first. Like, make sure your salespeople have the lead so they can actually call them. And ironically, that one tweak is just making sure that the lead got from the point of inception to the salesperson within 30 minutes. They increased their revenue close rate by like 35%. It was ridiculous. So that's it. It's just kind of funny how just getting to follow up as quickly as possible increases your likelihood to close so high.
You know, and what I love about that story, Anthony, is that it was a Fortune 100 company, someone who's making probably millions, tens of millions of dollars a year or more. And it was something as simple as, hey, let's just get the leads to the salespeople fast. What a crazy idea. And I know this is true because when you work in a corporate setting, they're dinosaurs. They don't want to change anything because change is hard, and at a massive scale, change breaks things. We can all agree that at a big scale, if you try to change things, it will break stuff. And also, I'll never forget having a conversation even with a small business owner who the leads went to him first, and then he would cherry pick who he sent the lead to based on which closer he thought was going to be a better fit, which exactly like you said, led to a 12, sometimes 48-hour difference from when the person raised their hand and said, "Yes, I'm interested in this program," to when the closer finally called and said, "Hey, I saw your application." A lot of times that little bit of distance from
they've already made a decision. They've already made a decision to go with somebody else. Think about it for yourself, right? So when you're calling somebody, you're like, I have a wallet in my hand. I'm ready to make a purchase here. I'm trying to evaluate whether or not you're a good fit for me. And it takes them 2 days. Like you have completely, you've lost me at that point. It's like, where's the deal prevention department? Let me talk to them quick so I can get out of it.
For all of you that don't know, that's the underwriting department. If you need to know more,
legal.
Yeah. I have a whole Facebook group filled with memes about underwriting, and I'm surprised. I even get clients that work in underwriting, and they're like, "You're pretty ruthless." And I was like, "Yes, so are you." Imagine I'm trying to close deals and make money, and you just seem to be against it. It's the craziest thing. But it's like you said, though. when you start getting objective and you look at the bigger picture of things, sometimes we're trying to make it more complicated than necessary. We're trying to add all these fancy systems and processes when really it's going back to the basics. So I'm curious for you, having worked with numerous companies over the years, what would you say is the number one mistake you see in these companies from a sales perspective?
To kind of lead into what, like, I feel like you're leading the witness here a little bit, but it's overthinking about process. Like,
Sure.
What's CRM and what's the routing mechanism and how do we round robin and do we have territories and what's our commissions? Like, no, like just start returning phone calls first, right? Just start picking up the phone, listening to customers. Don't worry about when you scale. You need these systems. Get there first, have things break, and then optimize and systematize the sales process. The most common mistake I have is like, all right, what's our CRM? It's like Google Sheets, Excel, your notepad. Make it simple, make it analog, get something that works, and then when you're overwhelmed with the number of leads, that's a good problem that you can easily solve with the CRM.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because there are so many people that will get hung up on perfecting things that are going to break and aren't ever going to be perfect to begin with. So, like, for you, how...
If I can, it's an excuse not to call the leads.
Yeah, well,
you're doing something so that you don't have to do the thing you don't want to be doing.
We could go real deep on that, and I'm going to make a note to come back to that topic for a second, because, like, procrastination on calling the leads, and again, I don't try to lead the witness, but I mean, cliches are a thing for a reason. When I trademarked "call the damn leads," I went, this is something that every business owner across the country wants to say. And at the time, it probably wouldn't have flown by compliance, and the HR department would have been like, you can't talk to people that way. But I don't care. I'm not necessarily a corporate guy. I like to do things my own way. But for you, how did you find your way into entrepreneurship? Because to me, sales is service, is entrepreneurship. It all falls in line. Like, what led you down that path?
I'm a crappy employee. So I
tell me more. Come on.
I
gotta know.
It was survival. Like, the only way I could make money is to work for a boss that had to deal with me, and that was myself. Like, that's it. I am. Yeah. If you have me talking to HR, I'm gone. Like, I do not want to. Not that I was pulled into HR that often, but you know what I mean? It's like the process, the system. Like, if I'm having to follow somebody else's BS process, I'm out. So I became an entrepreneur because I wanted to work by my own value system. And that's fundamentally, now that's not why I started. I didn't have that, recognition when I started. It's just like, I don't want to work for this schmuck. I'm going to go do this thing on my own. And that's essentially how I started as an entrepreneur. Now, the irony is that schmuck was probably a lot more right about things that I didn't know, right? As you get into, you're like, oh, that's why you have a policy not to grab people's butt. I get it now. Yeah. I've never done it, but I've had to talk to people that have, right? I was like, dude, you can't do that kind of stuff.
I have a client in my consulting group, and she does HR, and her and I joke about the silly rules that they have to create for some of these work establishments. And it's like, you wouldn't think that you'd have to write that down on paper and tell an adult that they cannot steal someone's lunch, or that they can't, say certain things in the workplace to a female or a male employee, an opposite, like.
Yeah, it's crazy. I still believe, though, like, policies are for leaders that don't want to manage people. Like, if somebody does something bad or unkind.
On that topic. Keep going. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so like for the longest time, the only policy that I had in my employee handbook was we had a no wedgie clause. That was the only policy that we had, and that was basically to poke fun at the fact that companies that have policies are doing that because they don't have good managers or leaders to say, hey, you know what, you shouldn't talk to somebody like that. It's conflict avoidance, right? It's in the handbook, so you shouldn't do it. But in reality, if it's in the handbook, why didn't you just have that conversation with the person that was doing that bad thing instead of punishing everybody for having a policy against something that that maybe is restricting the freedom and the autonomy that your employees need in order to be productive.
I was a part of a corporation where, to be fair, I was employee number 3. And, over time that I was there, we built it to, I think there was maybe 50 employees. We had a building with 20 people running around all the time. And so it got to a point where, we had to put some of these things in place. And it was very weird to have to, like I said, tell adults like how to behave. But as I got out of it and objectively looked at the big picture, you can see where the employees will follow the example of the leadership.
Yes.
And unfortunately, what I see a lot of times in these HR situations is the handbook says one thing, but the leadership's doing another thing, and they're not setting the example. And so that very much will tell you a lot about a company. And it's interesting how some companies from the outside, you think like, oh man, they really have their stuff together. Then you get on the inside and you go, how the heck do these people like make money? How does this work? So I'd be curious to know, as you step into a business and you're helping to make that business an asset that's actually sellable, something that can be a real business, not just like a fun job that people have for themselves. What does that transition look like in a leadership perspective?
Well, yeah, it's first of all, I'll say that it's shocking how many different cultures actually work. If you're reading a book and it's telling you this is the culture you need to run a growing business, throw it out. Like they don't know. There's companies that work really well where they occasionally have fist fights in meeting rooms. It's not a company I would want to work for. There's also other companies that operate entirely by consensus, not collaboration, but everybody has to be on the same page and everybody's feelings need to be taken into account. Again, some very successful companies operate that way, not the kind of company I would want to work for. So culture, you said it, starts at the top. It's the founder or the CEO that really sets the culture. Now, what you asked next is, how do I position my company for an exit? How do I position the systems in order for an exit? There's a couple of things. So I for your listeners, I help companies exit businesses. So it's one of the things that I do as I guess you could say as a side hustle.
Serial entrepreneurs got a lot of things they do.
I got a lot of things, and some of them make money. So there's some common threads in businesses for valuation. One, very simply, this is really easy. You don't have a lot of your revenue concentrated in a single customer. It has nothing to do with culture outside of you need a repeatable sales process that continues to bring new customers in so that you don't have 20 or 30% of your revenue relying on one customer. Another one is clean books, like simple stuff. Have a good bookkeeper. Make sure you're checking in on those books every month. And that the line items make sense and things are being properly categorized. Another really big thing is operational consistency. And what I mean by that is a new owner coming in, are they looking at the existing owner and says, this business falls apart if this guy's not here? And if it falls apart, the valuation for your business gets plummeted because you're leaving, right? The man or woman that's running that operation, the intention is to leave. And if the company can't operate without you, then what are they buying? So really, as you're planning an exit, you need to be planning on working your way out of a job and really seeing if you can you leave for 2 weeks and truly tune out, and the business operates kind of fine without you.
Sometimes
that's
better.
A really good indicator. Sorry?
Sometimes they operate better when the manager gets out of there for 2 weeks.
I've closed my best deals not being at work, like being on vacation. Some of the best deals have come through. I'm like, wow, I need to go on vacation more. Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing that. And the reason I wanted you to kind of expand on that, because I think a lot of people get hung up on, they have to have the perfect person in this role, and they have to have all these things in place before they're able to get out of that position of like a job and being more of a leader. And I think the ability to create those systems and processes starts with setting the example. Like,
Yes.
as a leader, you set the system, the process, the example so that it's easy to pass on to someone so that you're working yourself out of that job, because that's what an asset really is it's a repeatable system and process. And what most business owners that I find get caught up in is their ego, their pride, their whatever won't let them get out of the minutia of the day to day. The sales process, they still got to be involved in every sale, or they got to make sure that the lead is going to this person or that person, versus letting the system and process do what the system and process does.
There's the fundamental truth is, for almost any leader, and the blocker to delegating is that this person's not going to do it as well as I do. And so usually it's like, it's just faster for me to do it, right? Which, fine, but you're limiting your scale. You're just limiting your business to you. You're the bottleneck. And the truth is, say all you want about Gary Vee, right? But the one thing that he says that I think is a really good truism is, nobody's going to work as hard and know as much about your business as you. So,
amen.
Either the business is about you, or it's about you learning and taking as a craft delegation. And to bring this to sales, there is nobody that's going to be better at closing than you are. Period. I don't know how many sales leaders I have talked to in the past that complain about the owner, because the owner's like, I have a higher close rate than you, and you're the professional salesperson. It's like, yeah, you're apples and oranges, dude. Like, of course, customers are going to buy from the owner than a sales guy, of course. And and by the way, owner, you gave something up that I wouldn't have. Like, you're caving a little bit because you're the owner and you want the business, so you can lower your prices a little bit where you told me I can't. Like, so it's not fair to compare a sales leader with an owner. So yeah, delegation and not having an ego and taking the time to train somebody into a new role, those are hard. And I understand why people don't want to do it, but it's critical if you're going to scale.
And what I want to lead into on that is the risk, because I think business owners are afraid to take that risk of letting someone else have control of the process that's been their baby for so long. And objectively, you're right. There is no one who's going to be as good as you are on the phones. But the only way you got that good was to get on the phones and to have those conversations. And so how do you help people work through that process of like calculating the risk or weighing the pros and cons of like, okay, if I put this position in place, what plays out from there?
Yeah. I mean, it's usually it's show me, watch me, and then walk away. Right. So when training a new salesperson, the first thing is like, if you're the salesperson as the owner, they need to watch you sell. They need to watch you go through the process. Then you need to kind of do it together as a team. Then you need to watch them do it and coach them as they're doing it. And that's at the point where you can walk away. Are they going to make more mistakes than you? A lot of them. But I mean, think about it. When you were first starting out, how many mistakes did you make? They're going to have to go to the same process. It's part of learning. So yeah, you have to get comfortable with watching other people make a mistake. Again, otherwise it is always going to be you that's going to have to do every job in the business.
It really be like that, man. The hardest person to get out of their own way is yourself. Like, and the hardest advice to take is your own, because you're giving it to the sales guy, but you're still making that same mistake, because when we can't get out of our own way, that is the roadblock. That is the bottleneck in our business. And what I love about this from a sales perspective is that, often we have the sales professional on these calls, but at some point you might just get sick of working for that schmuck that you work for, and you want to go and start your own business, and you're going to have to go through this transition. You're going to have the experience of going from top number one sales guy that does what he wants, handbook aside, like whatever, I'm going to come and go and be my guy because I get things done, to I can't do that anymore because they need to believe that they need to be in the office and they need to see the example. And it's such a interesting transition for a sales professional. And I think it's the Peters principle that you can sometimes be promoted to a level that's detrimental for you. You know, great
Everybody's
sales
promoted to their own
professionals.
level of incompetence.
Is that what it is? See,
Yeah, yeah. I
see,
love that
you
quote.
know,
Yep,
yeah,
yep,
it's so good.
yep.
And you know what I love about this, and what I'd be curious on your perspective of, you know, when a business owner is making the exit, you gave us a couple of things: simple, repeatable processes, and you know, can you leave for 2 weeks? How much does sales play into that part of the exit?
So if you think about from a buyer's perspective, right? This is kind of sales 101, right? Put yourself in the buyer's shoes. If you think about it from the buyer's perspective, they're risking, what's risky for them when they're buying your business? One is, does the fundamental risk is, does the business go sideways the moment I take it over? So they're looking to de-risk that. One of those is the founder that's leaving, like how critical is the business? Another one is key employees. Another one is our key customers going to leave? And then another one is how it's quality of earnings, is how repeatable is their sales process, and what's the quality of their revenue? And is that something that the more variability in your revenue, like if you see numbers that do this month over month or quarter over quarter, that's more risk. And therefore I'm going to and more importantly, not just the buyer, a lot of smaller businesses are bought with SBA loans. And the bank is going to look at this and say, what am I willing to lend the new owner? It's not even you're not even negotiating necessarily with the new buyer. You're negotiating with the bank, and the bank's like, you're not going to convince the bank that they're buying a good business if the revenue's doing this. Like the bank's like, there's only a certain amount of risk we're willing to take. So you have to kind of keep in mind all those. I would say those are the 4 pillars that you need to keep in mind when you're putting yourself in a buyer's shoes.
I love that. And I think that's so interesting, because even a sales professional sometimes forgets to put themselves in the buyer's shoes and be in their worldview and understand that the problem they're trying to solve is their problem. And
yes,
from us, our version of success is a perspective. You know, for some person, making $1 million is the end all be all. But if some person B made $1 million, it would be the worst day of their life. So we have to be able to get into their shoes and understand what is it's going to be the best benefit for them, so that they can see that and see it plainly, which is where sales gets so complicated. It's like we started with your story of, hey, we built this whole system. We spent half a day. I can't imagine what 6 hours with the CCCCs cost that business when it was a 10-second conversation on the way out the door that made all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it was that is, it's not just that, but it's that the fact that none of the C-suite knew that it took 7 days for a lead to get into this door and to a salesperson. Like that was a revelation. It's shocking. Like why did you need to pay me as a consultant to tell you that? it's kind of embarrassing. Yeah.
Well, you know, you don't know what you don't know until you do,
right.
And then you have to make a decision. And a lot of times what I find, especially as a consultant myself, is sometimes you're so close to the mess that you're missing the message. And Anthony, I have had just an absolute blast chatting with you today. I'm sure we could sit here and nerd out and tell all kinds of funny stories together. But I want to be respectful of your time and the listeners. So what's the best way for us to come follow you, see more about how you help these small businesses, maybe learn about what our business is worth? Like, how do we do that?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. My handle's right here in the video at Anthony Franco. I also run my own entrepreneurial podcast. It's to help entrepreneurship be less lonely. We talk about tactics for entrepreneurs. It's called How to Founder. Just visit us on howtofounder.com, and you can find us on Spotify and YouTube and all of the channels. So yeah, just come and listen and participate. That would be great.
Anthony, I appreciate that, man. I'm a guy who loves to listen to stuff like that in the morning when I'm walking and using that dead time to really fill myself with more knowledge. And you're right, man. Entrepreneurship can be very lonely sometimes, because you start leveling up the conversations that you're having. The people start looking back at you like a deer in the headlights. And there's nothing wrong with that Objectively, though, if you want to keep growing, the best thing you can do is surround yourself with amazing people who are willing to pour into the community. So, Anthony, I'm grateful that you took some time to pour into me and my community today. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having a good conversation. It was fun.
I appreciate it. You guys know what to do from here. If you enjoyed the episode, send it to a friend, send it to a colleague, someone that you care about that you know will get some value out of today's episode. And then leave us a review, subscribe, do all the stuff that we're supposed to do. You know how it goes. But most importantly, if you have an awesome sales story, I want you to be on the show. I want to share it. This is how we connect. This is how we keep entrepreneurship from getting lonely. Head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your information. Book a time. Let's have you on. Because just like my new friend Anthony, everyone has a story, and you never know what you could learn by sharing yours. So we'll see you guys on the next one. Go call the damn leads.